supposed to sport broken windows, Gothic architecture, and perhaps looming towers. However, a modest, well-kept ranch house in Wisconsin shattered that stereotype when it became one of the most famously haunted homes in America. The small town of Oregon, Wisconsin, is best known for its proximity to a large marsh, where thousands of Canada geese stop on their migratory route. But in the late 1980s, a small home on Larrabee Street stole the spotlight from the marsh when the young family living there claimed that it was sharing its home with a horrific entity. Dun dun dun. Nightmare in the Nursery. In June 1987, Deborah and Alan, of course, whose names have been changed to protect their privacy, and their children, Kenny, Marianne, and Sarah, began to experience frightening and inexplicable events after purchasing a secondhand set of bunk beds for Kenny. The unusual activity began in Kenny's room. Dun dun dun. First, a radio would change stations by itself. Then a babysitter reported that an unoccupied chair teetered back and forth, and a suitcase that was stored under the bottom bunk shot out as if someone under the bed had shoved. Kenny also told his parents that he often saw a glowing old lady with long black hair standing in his doorway. Fog, flames, and fear. As events escalated during the fall and winter, Alan tried to verbally confront the spirit that he and Deborah were sure had somehow moved in with them. When he told the unseen presence to leave his children alone, he was shocked to receive a response from a loud voice that told him to come here. This was followed by the appearance of a glowing flame-like specter in the garage. The fiery entity glared at Alan with 2 large green eyes. In early January 1988, Alan saw a foggy spirit with large green eyes rise out of the floor, and he again heard the loud voice. This time the voice told Alan that he was dead, and then the apparition vanished in a streak of faux flames. Alan and Deborah asked their minister to try to bless the spirit away, but that didn't help. Rumors about the house being haunted quickly spread around town, and on January 11th, the family moved out and trashed the bunk beds at a distant landfill. By January 21st, an onslaught of people who hoped to see some paranormal activity had besieged Larrabee Street. In fact, the Oregon police had to patrol the area because of greatly increased traffic and trespassers. At the same time, the gossip grew wilder. Area newspapers reported that people were claiming that the house had blood dripping from the ceiling. Strange graffiti had materialized on the walls. The family's snowblower was seen racing around the yard by itself, and the home's basement had a large hole in the floor that served as a gateway to hell. In short, the reaction from the populace was almost scarier than the family's actual experience. Sounds like it. Fame, but no fortune. Milwaukee Sentinel reporter James Nelson, who tracked down the family at a relative's house, wrote an extended series of articles based on exclusive interviews with Alan and Deborah, who agreed to participate on the condition that he withhold their identities. The Associated Press then spread the story far and wide. The National Enquirer offered the couple $5,000 for their story, but they declined, even though they had lost about $3,000 by returning the house's deed to their mortgage lender. Later in 1988, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries filmed an episode about the haunted ranch house in Oregon. Even though new owners had moved in and had reported nothing unusual, actors played the roles of Alan and his son, whose chilling encounters ceased after the family moved out and the bunk beds were discarded. Skeptics claim that the family made up the story, but because because the couple shunned publicity and offers of money, and even suffered considerable financial loss. That seems unlikely. The Oregon chief of police, the family's minister, and the Sentinel reporter all stated their belief in Alan and Deborah's sincerity. Hopefully the couple buried those bunk beds very deep in that landfill. Alright, on to another story. Stalked by an invisible entity. In November 1988, when Jackie Hernandez moved into a small bungalow on 11th Street in San Pedro, California, she was looking to make a fresh start, but her hopefulness quickly turned into what she described as the nightmare of all nightmares. From the time that Jackie moved into her new place, she felt a presence in the house. At first, it made her feel safe, as if someone was looking out for her. But Jackie soon realized that the presence was less than friendly shortly after their arrival. Jackie and her young children heard high-pitched, screeching noises throughout the house. Then in February 1989, Jackie's unseen house guests manifested in the form of two separate apparitions. One was an old man that Jackie's friend also witnessed while she was babysitting in the home. The other was a disembodied head that Jackie saw in the attic. Call in the cavalry. In August of 1989, Jackie asked a group of paranormal researchers to investigate the phenomena. Parapsychologist Dr. Barry Taff, cameraman Barry Conrad, and photographer Jeff Weedcraft had no idea how the case would impact their lives. Dun dun dun. On August 8th, during their first visit to the Hernandez home, the group noted a foul odor in the house, heard noises in the attic, and captured glowing orbs of light in photographs. Skeptical of Jackie's claim of seeing a phantom head in the attic, Weedcraft took several photos in the darkened space, but he left the room in terror after an unseen force yanked the camera from his hands when he summoned the courage to go back into the attic, this time with a flashlight. What the fuck is this guy doing? That's stupid. Not to bring a flashlight. Anyways, he found the body of the camera on one side of the room and the lens on the other inside a box. Later that same evening, while Weedcraft and Conrad were in the attic, Weedcraft was violently pushed by an invisible hand. After they returned to the main level of the house, loud banging noises were heard coming from the attic, as if someone or something was stomping above them. When the researchers returned to the house later that month, they observed a liquid oozing from the walls and dripping from the cabinets. Samples that were analyzed at a lab determined that the substance was blood plasma from a human male. Why it would be oozing from the walls was anyone's guess. Get out and don't look back. The phenomena that Jackie and the investigators experienced on the night of September 4th, 1989, shook them to their very cores. During the day, the poltergeist ramped up its attention-seeking behavior. After watching objects fly through the air and hearing mysterious moaning and breathing noises, Jackie called the researchers for help. Weedcraft and Conrad's friend Gary Bohm were inspecting the pitch-black attic and were just about to leave when Weedcraft screamed. Bohm took a photo, hoping that the flash would illuminate the room so he could see Weedcraft and help him. Bohm's photo captured the spirit's latest attack on Weedcraft, who was hanging from the rafters with a clothesline wrapped around his neck. The cord was tied with a seaman's knot. Bohm was able to rescue Weedcraft, who was understandably shaken by his encounter with the evil entity that seemed to have a personal vendetta against him. After observing several other paranormal phenomena that night, Jackie and the researchers left the San Pedro house, never to return. You can run, but you can't hide. Frightened for the safety of her young children, Jackie moved her family nearly 200 miles away to Weldon, California. But it didn't take long for the poltergeist to find her. The haunting started with unusual scratching noises that came from a backyard shed, then a black shapeless form was spotted in the hallway of the home, as had been the case in San Pedro. Others witnessed the phenomena as well. While moving an old television set out of the storage shed, Jackie's neighbors saw the ghostly image of an old man on the screen. In April 1990, when the researchers heard that the paranormal activity had followed Jackie to her new home, they drove to Weldon to continue their work on the case. Besides, Weedcraft had a personal interest in the matter. This whole thing, for some reason, just reminds me of the movie Sinister, which scared the living crap out of me. He wanted to know why the entity was focusing its physical attacks on him, hoping to provoke the spirit. Jackie, her friend, and the researchers decided to use a Ouija board. During the session, the table that they used shook violently. Candles flickered and the temperature in the room dropped dramatically. But the group may have received the answers it was seeking. Through the Ouija board, the spirit told them that he was a sailor who had been murdered in 1930 when his killer drowned him in the San Pedro Bay. He also said that his killer had lived in Jackie's former home in San Pedro. When Weedcraft asked the spirit why he was being targeted, the entity said that Weedcraft resembled his killer. It then picked up Weedcraft and threw him against the wall. He was naturally frightened, but he was not injured. After that, Conrad searched old newspaper records to see if the information that they'd received from the spirit could be verified. It was. In 1930, sailor Herman Hendrickson was found drowned in San Pedro Bay, although he'd also suffered a fractured skull. His death was ruled accidental. Bullshit. Perhaps Hendrickson's spirit was trying to make it known that his death was not accidental, but that he was murdered. Alright. Spirit Stalker. In June 1990, Jackie moved back to San Pedro and rented an apartment on 7th Street. This time she had a priest bless the place before she moved in. Nevertheless, the glowing orbs returned. Later that year, Conrad's home was also infested with poltergeist activity, which he witnessed along with Bohm and Weedcraft. Objects were mysteriously moved to a new location. Burners on the gas stove were turned on by themselves. Scissors flew across the kitchen. A broom was left standing on top of the stove, and scissors were found underneath pillows in the bedroom. Also, Weedcraft was again pushed by the invisible force, which left red scratch marks on his back. The phenomena greatly diminished after that, although subsequent residents of the house on 11th Street in San Pedro also claimed to witness the poltergeist activity. Since then, it is said that no one has lived in the house for more than 6 months, although Jackie was terribly frightened by the mysterious activity at the time. She later said that she was grateful to have had a first-hand encounter with the other side, which not many people get to experience. Although some folks might welcome a visit from a ghost, few would want it to be as distressing as what Jackie went through. So that is all we're going to have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and like and subscribe.